Guys, here on Birds 365, we get to talk to our bud Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, NJ.com. He's been good enough basically all year to hop on with us after Eagles games, and he does so again here today. Best game of the year put in so far by the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday, Chief Franklin?
It's pretty close. You know, I look at the way that Minnesota game, I think that was up there for me as well too when you look at the way that they played. But you know, I'll still say the Minnesota game because there's way too many pre-snap penalties by the Eagles in this last game. And I mean, I felt like one of us was going to get flagged the way as many false starts that was being called yesterday or the holdings and stuff. But I still put the Minnesota game up there, but I think that's a close second.
Yeah, it you know, besides the penalties, which you're right, and I think that's a great thing for a coach to play a game like that, but you still have something to complain about, which is always the best teaching tool. Is there anything you weren't happy with on the field, offensively, defensively, even special teams showed up, Chris? I mean, I that was impressive. Now Tennessee was banged up. I think the Traylon Burks play, I think, really hurt them. Don't have a lot of weapons, and even him, you know, that's a rookie player. We're acting like he's some kind of proven commodity, and looks like he's going to be a good player down the road. But I can't find anything to complain about. Offense, defense, special teams.
Wait, you can say like, oh well, the L1 on kickoff did not go cover the lane.
He played great.
2 yards within the side.
Christian Ellis, L2 played great.
But yeah,
it was amazing.
First of all, it looks like he may have just bought himself another another elevation. But overall, when you look at the way this team played, off like when you look at everything that people complain about over time. Well, you look at, Jalen, this passing offense is not an elite passing offense. Well, they put up 380 yards against the Titans, who lead their division. Granted, it's a weak division, but they still lead division, still a playoff team, it's still up there in that. They look at this defense can't stop anybody on the run. Well, they held Derrick Henry to 30 yards, and Ryan Tannehill was your leading rusher on the Titans. Okay, you'll take that. And then you look at the return game. Oh, the return game's been bad, which it has. This has been start declining over that. All of a sudden, Britton Covey has the second most yards over in the return yards punt wise in the league this season in that one game. So it really is tough to find something like that. And he's like, wait, maybe you miss. You feel like maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing something, but it is tough. It really is tough to find something.
The guy's name who, shame on me, shame on Johnny and I together, and or we should put quotes in the mix. Shane Steichen, 2 weeks running. It's a chess match every week between your offensive coordinator, their defense coordinator, and vice versa. He's played all the right cards. Whatever he reaches into the deck and throws out there, and it's coming up matching something else. He has been phenomenal at play calling. Now the players have to go out and execute, and they surely have for the last 2 weeks. But 75 points the last 2 weeks. Are we not giving Shane Steichen enough credit for his play calling?
I think so. I've been really high on him. I thought that he's going to be a really good. He's going to be a head coach. To me, he's going to be a head coach next year. It's a matter of where he wants to go. I don't think I saw the things he's going to UNLV. I don't foresee that happening at all. I think he's going to stay in the league. But I think when you look at everything he's done, when you look at the little technical aspects of some of these plays that they're running on, the little wrinkles they throw in the run game, the little wrinkles they throw in the passing game. I mean, you're starting to see stuff like. The only one, there you go. There's something. The only thing I didn't get was that reverse flea flicker thing they tried to quiz.
Yeah,
they got hurt overall, but
that trying to get a little too exciting. But you know, they're feeling themselves, Chris. Not necessarily a bad thing. They're playing with a lot of confidence. I can't, you know, you got to go back to 1987. To find a team who ran for 350 1 week and threw for 350 the next. So this kind of versatility as an offense is something you don't see every day. They didn't, you know, people might say they couldn't run the football yesterday. I just think they didn't need to run the football. Ultimately, if they wanted to, they probably would have got it going. When you go into a football game, and I think there was some. We want to get AJ involved. We want to get AJ the big game against Tennessee. But man, this team has a luxury of so many people. Jack Stoll's getting involved. Grant Calcaterra is getting involved. Wes Watkins is getting involved. Jalen's distributing, I think it was 9 receivers. If you were a defense coordinator, what do you do? What do you do? What is your first goal you're trying to accomplish?
I think the first thing is the main thing you got to do is you basically have to contain Jalen Hurts in the pocket. That's the only thing I can think of, because even if, and I know the simplest it sounds because teams have tried to do that, but you got to get pressure on him. And even then, he's proven that he can get the ball out quickly, go to the hot read, and move his way. And the only, I think when you look at the way, I think this, I know it's silly to say, especially when you look at a team that tied with the Commanders last week, but I think seeing a team like against like Wink Martindale and the Giants, who love to blitz, who love to bring pressure and dial up these different little looks, which the Eagles have had some issues so earlier in the season with. I think that's the type of game plan that I think could really give that offense some issues. But they've shown that they can dump it off, and he's taking the checkdowns. I mean, you saw yesterday when he was throwing it to Kenneth Gainwell in the middle of the field. There's nothing downfield
Kenny.
open.
I forgot Kenny. Kenny Gainwell looked like the Kenny Gainwell we thought we were going to see. Man, this team is tough to deal with.
It's tough. I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the different tricks and trades and everything else you can use, but it's really because you're going to leave something open, and they've proven that if you leave something open, they're going to take advantage of it. So, good luck. That's maybe that's why I'm not getting paid the bucks for a defensive coordinator job.
Good luck.
And another group that we got to give props to is the defensive line yesterday. I asked John about it, and he said, Jody, they were only in 5-man fronts, a handful of plays the entire game. Now, they probably all came on first down, and before you know it, it's 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8, so they can go to their regular 4-man front. Didn't matter, 5-man front, 4-man front. They just stone cold shut down the running game and got 6 sacks yesterday on Ryan Tannehill. As a group, to me, even though they got 8 sacks against Carson Wentz earlier this year, I thought that was their most impressive game of the entire year.
It definitely was up there. When you look at the way, I liked how Cox played. I liked how Josh Sweat. I think there's a player that
Josh,
like it's been under the radar for most of the year. It's also, he says he got frustrated at times when he was getting, because he had that Pro Bowl year last year. He was getting chipped. He was getting double teamed and everything else. He got frustrated. Now he's found ways to let that go and let that frustration go. And now you're starting to see it pan out for him. Look at the last couple of weeks. He's getting consistent pressure. And the one thing that I really saw that they do well is they played their gaps a lot better, a lot more soundly. They didn't try to overpursue. There's still some things I don't like. I like that spin move that a lot of the defensive tackles like to weigh. It seems like they're always spinning themselves out the play, and then it leaves some little cutback lanes there. But I mean, for what they've invested in that defensive line, I think they're finally getting what they see out of it, and it's starting to really pay off now, especially with even the additions of Joseph and Sue. So it's a good front. It's a good front.
Yeah, and Hassan Reddick as well.
Yep.
He had 4,
about him, yeah.
I think 4 quarterback hits, and Sweat had 3. So those guys were playing, meet at the quarterback pretty much all afternoon. And Ryan Tannehill, he's played a lot of football, but he didn't look like he played a lot of football because he didn't pull the trigger. He didn't seem confident of what he was seeing on the field. And so we got to talk about JG. JG was fired up. I don't know if you saw him in the locker room, Chris, but I saw him real quick, and he said, "How about that, man? That was an impressive performance." And the back end, I want to talk about Reed Blankenship, and I want to talk about Josiah Scott, because one's an undrafted kid. The others, barely played. But he's had to come in for Avonte Maddox. In theory, you would say that's going to be an issue. It's not been an issue. Why has it not been an issue?
Because I think it goes back to the front. the way this defense looks like it really does, and I hate the term because I keep hearing it over and over again. This, but that whole complementary defense thing, I think it works in tandem because when you look at the way where you have the guys on the outside, where you have Slay, you have Bradbury, that takes a lot. When you have those guys working on outside, it takes a lot of time away from throws off the timing because of the way they're able to play them. And when you add Blankenship into that, Blankenship just says, "Hey, you know what? Play the deep half if you have to, or play single line." All right, cool. And I think he does that well because he can use his skills and his intuition to play and try to jump the routes that way, which you don't have to worry about that. I think the tougher thing was Josiah Scott coming in there to replace Devonta Mash. We've always heard JG say, "Hey, you know what? That like when you have a slot corner that is really reliable." You don't have to use so many assets to go ahead and try to cover things up, and it can really blow up his defense. Well, the way that Scott has elevated his game to be inserted himself and make timely pass deflections, and don't get me wrong, like he has been perfect. He gave up inside position on that Burks touchdown. He got beat off the line, but there's been more times than not where you see him come up and make a play, you make the pass deflection to your sideline. You see all that other stuff, and I've been impressed. I think that's been the most impressive thing to him, and they got some tough decisions to make because Avante is about ready to come back. I mean, I saw him on the far field the other day running, and he looks a lot better. So,
they got some tough decisions to make decision. Avante's back. Avante's going to play, but
I'm not talking about that. I mean, Avante's going down. I'm talking about like when it comes to down the line, who you start to kick off the roster, who may have that phantom ankle injury, who may have that phantom knee injury. Yeah.
How much? And either one of you guys can answer this question for me. How much were they in zone coverage yesterday on the back end?
Oh, they're always in zone coverage.
Yeah, that's their
it seemed like about 95% to me. And that is because the group that they have, I would say, is pretty athletic, not off the charts athletic. They're defensive secondary, which means it's discipline, it's anticipation,
communication.
It's having it laid out for you in advance as to what your responsibilities are and what's going to be able to, the other team's probably going to run. That's where Gannon's got to get some credit for it because I think he's got them coached up every single week because if you're going to play as much zone as you do, then you're relying most times on your athleticism. And this isn't the most athletic defensive backfield ever put together, but they're getting the job done. So yeah, like you got to give Gannon credit for that. I don't care how big a detractor you are.
Before you chime in, Chris, I'll just add the communication aspect, which is the big thing, and that's what fell apart against Washington, which I was most disappointed. The communication on the back end, but James Bradbury, and then I'll want to hear your thoughts. That's the smartest cornerback in football. I mean, that play that he jumped. And he should have had the interception, but he jumped it too far. He saw that coming a mile away. I'm impressed more each and every week with just how smart a football player James Bradbury is. But just talk about the communication as a whole in that back end with the Eagles.
Well, you need it. It's tough, especially in defensive backs. You got a lot of times you got the crowd noise going, so you got to use a lot of hand signals. You trying to get into the right positions, and it can be a tough thing. And you see the way they do it. And I think that's where it helps. Having those veteran corners helps out because they can see a lot of the ways that these offensive alignments, whether it be splits, whether it be the way they're formationally changing. I think that's key. And also, I don't think they're playing a lot of the exotic fronts. I mean, a lot of exotic coverages. Whenever you look on TV, you see John Gannon's play call sheet. It's small. It's like almost like one of our like little journalistic.
It's like Chip Kelly's. It's like Chips. S8. S8. Oh, I still remember S8.
JG1 on the back of his. I don't know what you have to do on that one, but the way it's working.
It's quarters, cover 2, cover 6, cover 8, and occasionally.
2. Yeah, that stuff. Yeah. It's base stuff. And it's almost like, come to think of it, going back and thinking what we heard when Sirianni first came in, when Gannon first came in, about how they wanted to make it simplistic so that these guys use their athletic abilities a little bit more. And I'm thinking that's more and more. They throw tweaks here and there enough to not make it the same bland stuff here and there, but depending on the opponent. But you see that the philosophy is really starting to come to fruition.
Philosophy's coming in and the production coming. It's all coming together at the same exact time. I ran this out last week. I forget It's my buddy Ricky Ricardo, the voice of the Eagles, and Espanol. He ran it by me, so I ran it by Johnny Mac. Is there any fear that the Philadelphia Eagles have peaked too early? That you want to win it, so it's all about a parade. It's all about getting Kelsey into that Mummers outfit again. But that's the playoffs. And right now, they are the best team. They're the hottest team. They had the most impressive win in the National Football League for me yesterday. Is there a chance that this team may peak too early?
I don't think so. I would, if they had played this way, say week 6, and we really started to see a decline after that, I would have thought that. But right now, I don't think they peaked too early. In fact, I think the only thing you start to worry about now is, given the rest of the schedule and how some of the other teams are playing off, is you're almost looking like after that Dallas game, they win that Dallas game. When do you start rest? I think the question becomes when you start resting players. You don't want to worry about the peak. So I look at I just think overall, when I just look at everything, I don't think that's a concern. I think you have enough veteran guys on that team, that teams from that Super Bowl 52 winning squad that know what it takes and have been in the situation before. So they'll keep the younger guys, the younger impact guys level in that and make sure they're in the right state of mind. But I don't think they peaked you. I'm not concerned about that.
Hope you're right.
So, yeah, I'm not as concerned about that because Avante's eligible to come back this week. We'll see. Dallas Goedert, December 18th in Chicago. CJ is going to miss 4 games, but all indications are it's not a season-ending injury. You're getting those guys back. And we've seen this offense. Yeah, I was a little concerned with the passing offense when Dallas went out. And I think at the beginning they had some hiccups, and all of a sudden they throw for 380, and Jack Stoll's going down the middle of the field. Grant Gutierrez getting the big reception. You mentioned Kenny Gainwell, Quez Watkins, Devonta and AJ both go for 100 yards. Yeah, I'm not concerned about peaking too early. The only thing I'm concerned about, Chris, and you can't control this, is injuries, more injuries.
Yep.
That's it. If this team is healthy, they're going to be tough to deal with. But you just saw it with San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco was the one team that concerned me, and they lose their quarterback. So now it's Brock Purdy. Good luck.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, he looked good yesterday. Yeah. You guys were doing your post-game stuff. I watched that game. Purdy was not bad. Now, can he do it over a continuous basis?
It gets tougher when they're game planning for you. They weren't expecting to see Brock Purdy. Now, I'm not making excuses for the Dolphins because they should have won that game. But anytime you're down to Brock Purdy as your quarterback. But there is something to the fact that they're not expecting to see Brock Purdy. And he's probably – and I don't know, Jody. I don't know much about him. And you said you watched the game. I'm guessing he's more athletic. I'm guessing he can do some different things just because he's got to be more athletic than Jimmy G. But I don't know. I'm guessing they rolled out some things that they weren't prepared for.
Nah, I honestly don't know that. I thought the Dolphins defense yesterday kind of spit the bit, and shame on them for that. But no, he made all the plays. He wasn't like zinging 20-yarders into tight windows, but when they had receivers open, he got the football to him, which might be enough for that San Francisco offense. I brought this up earlier. Johnny Mac had a power hit, so it kind of froze up on him. So I'll ask you this question, because it may have Eagle influence down the road. Not this year, but down the road. I saw it twice again yesterday. The quarterback push that you get either the tight end or the fullback or whoever.
They got to change that rule, by the way. They got to change.
That's what I said while you were frozen out, Johnny Mac. I believe that they will change it back next year and take it out of the net, because you couldn't. It used to be you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then they kind of said, "Well, go ahead. You can go ahead and do it." Again, it's not football. It's rugby. It's a scrum, is what it becomes. And yeah, the Eagles have taken advantage of it. I don't think they need it as much as some other teams do, because Jalen Hurts could move the pile with his 600 bench pressing legs to begin with anyway. Do you think we'll see that next season as a rule change, that they'll take the ability to push a runner forward out of the acceptable playbook?
I know there've been some rumblings about that. I've heard from a couple people. There've been some rumblings that the competition committee is going to look at it. I think it's more of just enforcing the aiding rule, because I have no problem with the rugby scrum. It's when the players start to pick up the other ones and start to sling them forward,
or they pull them forward, which you're not supposed to be able to do, but they don't call it. There was another game, not the Eagles game, and I can't recall. There was a sneak by the quarterback. Why can't I remember who it was? And it was originally ruled a stop, and then they reviewed it and turned it back into a touchdown. Oh, it was the Jets. It was Mike White. And you know, he stopped at first, and you know, what if the official blows the whistle? Then they're upset, but he let it go, and then the Jets push him off to the side and push him into the end zone. There's too much. Never give the officials more judgment, because if they say, all right, momentum is stopped, people are going to be upset, and they say, okay, fourth down, you don't score. If they don't blow the whistle and they just keep letting it going and going and going, you're eventually going to push the guy in the end zone. I hate that. I hate that they allow teams to do it. I hope they change it. And by the way, I think they will change it. And I think it will ultimately be called the Jalen Hurts rule, because it's too easy for the Eagles. And the Eagles don't even need it. It's the quarterbacks who aren't good at the quarterback sneak. But I don't like it, Chris, man. It just there's too much. They give the offense. The offense already has so many advantages. For the defense, it's absurd to expect, okay, stop his momentum, and they do it, but then you're not done because here comes three other players pushing them forward. I don't like that rule.
I don't like I said, I don't mind them, like when they used to push from behind, but when they start to bring them up and start to carry them in, that's where I have my issues. But you gotta look at it. It's helping keeping the offense on the field, which puts more points on,
And
which makes it more exciting. And that's what they want. Yeah. They keep going more and more with that one. So if I'm going to be a defender, I'm like, it's at the point now you start looking at the defenders like, why? You should pay us more. You know, we're getting beat left and right. Our names are getting tarnished because you get beat on the field so much.
And it pisses me off from a defensive perspective, because you do everything you're supposed to do, but then the whistle doesn't blow and you stop the momentum and other guys come in and just push the pile. I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine, but it's helping the Eagles. So I guess, you know, people in Philadelphia are not going to be on board with that.
All right, Chris Franklin, last question for me, and read Chris at NJ.com, does an outstanding job covering the Eagles day in and day out whenever he jumps in with us here on Birds 365. What will be the narrative, the hue and cry leading into the game this week against the Giants? What are the Eagles going to base their motivation on, either as a team or one individual?
I think they're going to look at it as saying, you know what, we got beat up there in the Meadowlands. Let's go ahead and avenge that loss last season, because I think that was one of the worst. There were some games that were pretty bad last year.
Worst game.
Ding. That's exactly right. Jalen Hurts' worst game as a Philadelphia Eagles starter was at MetLife Stadium against the Giants last year. And oh, by the way, they almost won that damn game. As bad as he played, as bad as they played overall, Jalen Reagor comes down with the ball. They actually win the damn game. I think that is the storyline starting today. Jalen owes the Giants one. He's going to go up to MetLife and play like the MVP that he's playing like this year. Mark my words.
Yeah, protect his ankle this time too, because under that game, it was like
that's the key. That MetLife turf, that's going to be part of the story. That MetLife turf is a disaster. Players don't like playing on it. And that probably will be a talking point this week, because Jalen happened to hurt his ankle. I don't think it had anything to do with the turf, but you know how these things take hold. And I think it was ironic that Jalen got hurt in the pocket, not outside the pocket last year. So that comes to it as well. You mentioned Wink Martindale, but I'll say this, last one from me, Chris. All right, even if Wink Martindale calls the best game he's ever called as a defensive coordinator, how does this Giants offense keep up with the Eagles? They can't keep up with the Eagles.
They're just going to have to. That's their key. They're going to have to muddy the game up defensively in order to limit this. If they're not giving it to Saquon Barkley touch wise, either rushing, pass, whatever, they're not giving them at least 25 times, maybe even 30 this game. I don't know what the heck they're doing then. And then it is also going to be a game where defensively the Eagles' edge rushers are going to have to be very, very disciplined, because we've seen Daniel Jones, for some reason, he likes to run wild against the Eagles.
Run. People don't realize how good a runner he is. Yeah,
he's not going to be the vet where the turf is going to trip him up when he's got a clear lane to the end zone. So
he's gotten used to that bad turf up there. He doesn't get tripped by the 10-yard line like he might down here in Philly. The only way the Eagles lose this game this week is if they turn it over at least twice. I say 3 times. If they turn it over twice, they can overcome that. If they turn it over 3 times, it might be enough. Yeah, I don't think they're turning it over 3 times. Chris Franklin, it is always good to catch up with you, buddy. You're looking good inside, outside, wherever he pulls up his computer and jumps on with us. He's always giving us good Eagle insight. Thanks, CF. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks,
appreciate it, guys. Thank you. You have a good one now. See you.
That is Chris Franklin here with us on Birds.